What if I told you that the secret to better relationships isn't found in grand gestures, endless compromise, or even perfectly worded apologies, but in mastering your own mind? Sounds counterintuitive, right? But hear me out. Too often we approach relationships on autopilot, reacting to every emotion, every disagreement, every perceived slight, as if it's a battle we need to win or a wound we need to heal. What if I told you there's a better way? A way rooted in ancient wisdom that's shockingly practical for today's chaotic, emotionally charged world. That's where Stoicism comes in, not as a cold, detached philosophy, but as a tool to transform how you connect with the people who matter most. This isn't about becoming emotionless or distant. It's about building stronger, healthier, and more resilient relationships by mastering one powerful skill: your response. Think about the last argument you had. Did you say something you regret? Or maybe you shut down trying to avoid conflict altogether. We've all been there, caught in that messy web of emotion and reaction. But what if you could break free from that cycle? In this video, I'm going to show you how Stoic principles, like mastering the pause, focusing on what you can control, and embracing radical acceptance, can revolutionize your relationships, not just with others, but with yourself. So stick around, because we're about to dive deep into how you can reclaim your peace, strengthen your connections, and approach every interaction with a quiet, unshakable confidence. This is a perspective that might just challenge everything you thought you knew about love, friendship, and communication. Let's get started. Number 1. The silent disarmament, mastering the pause. Here's a wild idea. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing. I know, it sounds absurd. We're conditioned to think that silence in the middle of a heated conversation is a surrender, a retreat, a missed opportunity to prove we're right. But what if I told you that mastering the pause, choosing to stay quiet when emotions are flaring, can be one of the most effective ways to build stronger, healthier relationships? Stay with me on this because, trust me, it's not about being passive or avoiding conflict. It's about strategy. It's about control. It's about disarming without fighting. You've been there. We've all been there. That moment when a conversation turns into an argument, and before you know it, you're knee-deep in a verbal tug-of-war. Maybe it's your partner snapping at you for forgetting something, or a friend throwing a passive-aggressive comment your way. Your instinct? Defend yourself. Explain. Retaliate. And sure, it feels satisfying for about 5 seconds, until the argument escalates and you're left wondering why the relationship feels like it's taken a hit. Sound familiar? Here's the thing. When emotions are high, words are like gasoline on a fire. You can't douse flames by shouting at them. Now, here's where the pause comes in. Imagine this. Someone says something hurtful or unfair. Instead of firing back, you take a deep breath. You let their words hang in the air. No defense, no comeback, just silence. At first, it feels awkward. You might even feel weak. But something magical happens. That pause, it forces reflection. Not just for you, but for them too. People start to hear the weight of their own words when they're not met with immediate resistance. It's like holding up a mirror without saying a thing. Why does this work? Because silence breaks the rhythm of conflict. It disarms the other person in a way that's not aggressive, but still firm. It says, "I'm not going to play this game." Psychologically, it gives both parties a moment to cool off, to reset. Think about it. How often do we regret the things we say in the heat of the moment? Pausing creates a buffer between impulse and response, and in that space lies clarity. Let me tell you about the time I first tried this. I was in the middle of a disagreement with a close friend over something trivial that had snowballed into a full-blown argument. She was venting, her voice rising, while I was gearing up to counter every point she made. But then I remembered this strategy. I stopped mid-sentence, took a breath, and just paused. The silence was palpable. She looked at me, confused at first. Then her tone softened. She started backtracking, even apologizing for overreacting. And me? I didn't have to say a single word to win. I walked away from that conversation feeling calmer, prouder, and, here's the kicker, closer to her. Mastering the pause isn't about letting people walk all over you. It's about reclaiming your power without getting dragged into emotional quicksand. It's about choosing peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, and strength over impulsiveness. And yes, it's hard at first. Your ego will scream at you to jump in, to defend yourself, to win. But when you pause, you're not just protecting your peace, you're teaching the other person something too, that respect matters and that not every battle is worth fighting. So the next time you feel the heat rising in a conversation, remember this: silence isn't weakness. It's strategy, it's power, it's dignity. Take the pause, hold your ground, and watch how the dynamics shift. Because your space, your peace, and your dignity are worth more than a fleeting moment of winning an argument. Number 2, radical acceptance over emotional fixing. Here's a question for you. What if the greatest gift you could give someone wasn't advice, wasn't a solution, wasn't even a word, but simply accepting them as they are? I know it sounds counterintuitive. We're wired to believe that if we care about someone, it's our duty to fix what's wrong in their life, to swoop in with the perfect advice, the clever solution, the magic fix. But here's the twist. Sometimes, trying to fix someone can do more harm than good. Stick with me, because this idea might just transform your relationships. Picture this: a close friend comes to you, venting about a rough day at work or an argument with their partner. You're sitting there, listening, and your brain kicks into overdrive. What should I say? How can I help them fix this? What advice can I give? Before you know it, you're rattling off solutions, telling them what they should do. But instead of feeling relieved, they seem distant, frustrated even. You know the type of moment I'm talking about, right? The one where you feel like your effort just backfired, and now you're both a little more disconnected. Here's the deal. Most people don't want to be fixed. They want to be seen, heard, and understood. They want to feel like they're enough, even in their messiest, most complicated moments. Radical acceptance is the simple but not easy act of saying, I see you, I hear you, and I accept you exactly as you are, flaws and all. It's not about agreeing with every choice someone makes or pretending their struggles don't exist. It's about dropping the urge to improve them and instead creating a space where they feel safe being their full, imperfect selves. Why does this work? Because when people feel truly accepted, they start to relax. They stop defending, explaining, and justifying themselves. This acceptance creates trust, and trust is the foundation of any meaningful relationship. Think of it this way: when you stop trying to fix someone, you free them to fix themselves. And that change, when it comes from within, is far more lasting than anything external you could impose. I'll never forget the time my sister called me, upset about a fight she'd had with her best friend. My instinct? Jump in with advice. You should tell her this. Next time, try that, I started saying. She went quiet, and then, with a mix of frustration and sadness, she said, I don't need you to fix it. I just need you to listen. It hit me like a ton of bricks. She wasn't asking for a strategy or a roadmap. She just wanted to feel understood. So I stopped. I listened. I let her vent without interruption, without judgment, without jumping in to save the day. And you know what? By the end of that call, she felt lighter. She thanked me, not for solving her problem, but for being there. Radical acceptance isn't passive. It's not about letting people stay stuck or tolerating unhealthy behaviors. It's about recognizing that true change only happens when people feel empowered, not criticized. And the irony, when you stop trying to fix people, they often start to find their own solutions, because your acceptance gives them the confidence to do so. This is about reclaiming the joy of connection. It's about letting go of the exhausting burden of trying to fix everyone around you, and instead focusing on what really matters, being present, being kind, and being there. So the next time someone you care about opens up to you, resist the urge to jump into fix-it mode. Just listen. Accept them as they are in that moment, because your acceptance might just be the thing they need to fix themselves. You don't have to save everyone. You just have to be there. Your space, your peace, and your presence are enough. Number 3, ego-free empathy, loving without ownership. Let me hit you with a thought that might rattle you a bit. You don't own the people you love, not their choices, not their happiness, not even their attention. I know that sounds harsh, maybe even wrong at first, but think about it. How often do we equate love with control, even in the subtlest ways? It's like we silently decide that our care gives us a say in someone else's life. But here's the twist. True love, the kind that deepens and lasts, isn't about possession. It's about empathy without ego, loving without ownership. And yes, it's as liberating as it sounds. You've been there, right? That moment when your best friend starts making decisions you don't agree with, or your partner pulls away for a bit, needing space, and suddenly your mind is spiraling with questions. Why didn't they tell me first? How could they not consider my feelings? It's that sinking feeling of being left out, unacknowledged, or even rejected. And the knee-jerk reaction, you tighten your grip, you push back, you demand to be heard, to be considered, to be reassured. We've all done it. But here's the hard truth. That reaction doesn't come from love. It comes from ego. Ego says, if I care about you, you owe me something. Empathy says, if I care about you, I want what's best for you, even if it doesn't involve me. See the difference? Ego makes love conditional. It says, I love you, but only if you behave in ways that validate me. Empathy frees you from that trap. It allows you to love someone as they are, without trying to mold them into who you think they should be. And guess what? That kind of love feels so much better for both of you. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Doesn't this just mean letting people walk all over me? Not at all. Ego-free empathy doesn't mean ignoring your needs or tolerating bad behavior. It's about letting go of the need to control. It's about stepping back and asking yourself, am I reacting out of love, or am I trying to protect my ego? When you start loving without ownership, you create space for others to grow, for you to breathe, and for the relationship to thrive without suffocation. Let me tell you about a time this hit me square in the face. A close friend of mine, let's call her Sarah, decided to make a major career move without telling me beforehand. I found out after the fact, and I was hurt. Not because her choice was bad, but because she didn't ask for my input. My initial reaction? Anger. Why wouldn't she consult me? Don't I matter to her? But then it clicked. Sarah's life is her own. My love for her doesn't entitle me to a vote on her decisions. So instead of sulking or confronting her, I leaned into empathy. I told her I was proud of her, even though I wasn't part of the process. And you know what? That moment strengthened our friendship, because my support wasn't about me, it was about her. Here's the beauty of ego-free empathy. It lets you love with an open hand instead of a closed fist. It teaches you to trust that the people you care about are capable of steering their own lives, even if you're not in the driver's seat. And when you let go of that ownership, you free yourself too, from the anxiety, the disappointment, and the constant need to manage other people's choices. This isn't about giving up or stepping back from love. It's about stepping into a kind of love that's lighter, freer, and more enduring. It's about recognizing that the people you love aren't possessions. They're individuals with their own paths, their own struggles, their own stories. Your role isn't to rewrite their narrative. It's to cheer them on, even when the plot takes a turn you didn't expect. So the next time you feel that twinge of control creeping in, ask yourself, is this love or is this ego? And then let empathy take the lead. Because when you love without ownership, you build relationships that are rooted in trust, respect, and freedom. Your love becomes a gift, not a contract. And that, my friend, is the kind of love worth giving. Number 4. The Stoic Mirror. Reflect before you demand. Let's be real. We've all had moments where we expected something from someone else, an apology, acknowledgement, effort, and felt frustrated when they didn't deliver. You might even catch yourself saying, "Why can't they just see how wrong they are?" It's tempting, isn't it? To want others to fix the situation, to meet your emotional needs, or to make the first move. But what if I told you that the most powerful tool you have isn't in changing them, it's in reflecting on yourself first? Before you demand anything from someone else, turn to the Stoic mirror. It's not just philosophical fluff. It's a game-changing way to approach conflict, relationships, and even your own peace of mind. Now picture this. You're in a heated argument. Maybe it's with your partner, your boss, or even a close friend. They say something that stings, and your first instinct is to fight back or demand an explanation. How could they say that to me, you think? We've all been there, right? But let's pause for a second. What if, instead of immediately reacting or demanding an apology, you stopped and asked yourself, what's really going on here? What am I contributing to this moment? It's not about taking the blame. It's about taking responsibility for your role in the dynamic. Here's where the Stoic mirror comes in. It's a simple practice. Before you point fingers, reflect inward. Why does this situation bother you so much? Are you projecting expectations that the other person didn't agree to? Are you reacting to their words, or to a deeper insecurity they've unknowingly touched on? This isn't about excusing bad behavior. It's about understanding the story you're telling yourself about what's happening. Because, let's face it, that story shapes your emotions far more than their actions ever could. I know, this might sound a little too zen for your liking. You're probably thinking, but what if they really are in the wrong? And sure, sometimes they are. But here's the thing, when you reflect first, you gain clarity. You can approach the situation with calm instead of chaos. You can express your needs without turning the interaction into a battlefield. Think of it this way, you're not letting them off the hook. You're making sure you're holding the right one. Let me give you a real-life example. A while ago, a colleague of mine missed a deadline on a joint project. I was livid, immediately assuming they didn't care about the work or respect my time. My instinct? To fire off a strongly worded email. But then I stopped and asked myself, why am I so upset? Is this about the missed deadline or something else? After a bit of reflection, I realized I was overwhelmed with my own workload and had unfairly pinned my frustrations on them. When I finally talked to them, I approached the conversation differently. I acknowledged my feelings but also asked what was going on with them. Turns out, they'd been dealing with a personal crisis, and my anger melted into understanding. The resolution? Collaboration and support, instead of resentment. The beauty of the Stoic mirror is that it doesn't just help you resolve conflicts. It helps you grow. It teaches you to separate what you can control, your reactions, your assumptions, from what you can't, their behavior. And when you master that distinction, you find an incredible sense of peace. This isn't about suppressing your emotions or letting others off the hook. It's about responding with clarity, not ego. So the next time you feel that urge to demand, pause. Take a moment to look in the mirror, not to blame yourself, but to understand yourself. Ask, what am I bringing to this moment? What story am I telling myself? And once you have that clarity, act from a place of calm strength, not emotional reactivity. Because when you master the art of reflection, you gain the power to navigate even the toughest situations with grace. This is about reclaiming your peace, your control, and your perspective. It's about showing strength, not through force, but through understanding. So before you demand, reflect. Before you react, pause. And in that stillness, you'll find something truly empowering. The ability to respond, not from ego, but from wisdom. That's the magic of the Stoic mirror. Use it and watch how your relationships and your inner peace transform. Number 5. The value exchange audit. Let's start with a question that might sting a little. Are you giving more to your relationships than you're getting back? Or, here's a twist, are you taking more than you're giving? Now, before you bristle or start tallying up favors, take a deep breath. This isn't about blame or keeping score. It's about clarity. Relationships, whether they're with friends, family, or co-workers, thrive on balance. But often, we let that balance slip without even realizing it. That's where the value exchange audit comes in. A no-nonsense, game-changing way to understand what you bring to the table and what others bring in return. You know the kind of relationships I'm talking about. The ones where you're constantly the listener, the helper, the fixer. Or the opposite, where someone is always there for you, but you never quite seem to reciprocate in the same way. We've all been in one or both of these roles, and while it might seem harmless on the surface, over time it creates resentment, exhaustion, or guilt. And here's the kicker. We rarely stop to think about it until it's too late, until the relationship feels strained, or we start wondering why we feel so drained. Here's how the value exchange audit works. It's about asking one powerful question. Is this relationship mutually enriching, or is it one-sided? And no, this isn't about material things. It's about time, energy, emotional support, and yes, even joy. When you step back and really look at your relationships through this lens, you'll notice patterns. Maybe you're giving endlessly to someone who rarely shows up for you, or maybe you're unintentionally leaning on someone without realizing they're starting to feel stretched thin. Now I get it. This might sound like a cold, transactional way to look at something as sacred as relationships. But hear me out. This isn't about measuring love or friendship with a calculator. It's about awareness. Because when you ignore this balance for too long, resentment or guilt creeps in, and the relationship suffers anyway. By doing this audit, you're not just protecting yourself, you're protecting the connection. Let me share a quick story. A few years ago, I had a friend who always came to me with her problems. At first, I didn't mind. It felt good to be the supportive one. But after a while, I realized I was pouring so much of my energy into her issues that I barely had any left for my own. I started dreading her texts because I knew they'd be another emotional dump. One day, I sat down and asked myself, is this friendship still balanced? Is it enriching me or just draining me? That realization was hard to swallow, but it gave me the courage to have an honest conversation with her. I told her I needed a little more reciprocity in our friendship. To my surprise, she agreed. She hadn't even realized how one-sided things had become. And guess what? Our friendship actually improved because of it. The value exchange audit isn't about cutting people off or keeping score. It's about creating healthier, more fulfilling connections. When you understand what you're giving and what you're getting, you can approach relationships with more honesty and intentionality. You can set boundaries where needed, offer more support when someone deserves it, and gracefully step back from dynamics that no longer serve you. This is about reclaiming your emotional energy, your time, and your peace. It's about stepping into relationships as an equal partner, not as someone who's overextending or over-relying. So take a moment and do the audit. Look at your relationships with fresh eyes and ask yourself, is this a balance that feels right for me? Because when your connections are rooted in mutual value, they don't just survive, they thrive. And so do you. Thank you so much for watching. I truly hope this video gave you some valuable insights into how Stoicism can help you build stronger, more meaningful relationships. If you found this helpful, don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps support the channel. And if you're interested in more content like this, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future videos. Do you know someone who might find this perspective useful? Share this video with them. It could be exactly what they need to hear today. Also, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and share your thoughts or personal experiences. Have you tried applying Stoic principles in your relationships? What worked for you, or what challenges did you face? Let's start a conversation and build a community that supports each other in growing and thriving. Remember, better relationships start with a better you, a calmer, more intentional and resilient version of yourself. By embracing these principles, you're not just improving how you connect with others, you're reclaiming your peace and building relationships based on mutual respect and understanding. So, until next time, take a deep breath, stay grounded, and remember, you have the power to choose how you show up for yourself and the people around you. See you in the next video.